Why anxious partners text again when they get no response? Why does an anxious partner send another text when their first message gets no response? Why can silence make them reach out again, even when they promised themselves they would stop? And why can a few hours without a reply feel emotionally heavier than an actual argument? The answer begins with what silence represents inside an anxious partner's mind. For them, an unanswered message may not feel like simple waiting. It can feel like emotional rejection. Their brain may quickly transform a quiet phone into a story about losing the relationship. They may wonder if something changed, if their partner is upset, or if they are being ignored. And once those questions begin, waiting patiently can become extremely difficult. The anxious partner isn't necessarily texting again because they want attention. Often, they are trying to reduce the uncomfortable uncertainty created by the lack of response. Imagine sending someone a message you deeply care about, then watching the minutes slowly pass. At first, you might assume they are busy, driving, working, or simply away from their phone. But as the silence continues, your mind may begin searching for another explanation. You start checking when they were last online, rereading your message, and wondering if you said something wrong. Suddenly, the unanswered text becomes much bigger than the message itself. It becomes a question about emotional security, connection, and whether the relationship still feels safe. This is why anxious partners often experience silence differently from emotionally secure partners. A secure person may think, they haven't replied yet, so I'll wait until they are available. An anxious partner may think, they haven't replied, so something must be wrong between us. That difference completely changes what happens next. Instead of allowing uncertainty to exist, the anxious partner tries to eliminate it. And one of the fastest ways they know to eliminate uncertainty is sending another message. The second text may look simple, but emotionally, it can carry a much deeper purpose. It may be their attempt to reconnect, receive reassurance, and bring the relationship back into emotional balance. Sometimes the message sounds casual, such as, "Hey, are you okay?" Sometimes they send something unrelated, simply to create another opportunity for connection. What looks like repeated texting can therefore be an attempt to calm internal anxiety. But there is another important reason anxious partners text again. They often struggle with unanswered emotional questions because their minds dislike uncertainty. When there is no clear explanation, the brain naturally tries to fill in the missing information. Unfortunately, anxiety rarely fills those gaps with the most comforting explanation. Instead, it may create negative possibilities that feel emotionally convincing. They are losing interest. They found someone else. They are angry with me. They are intentionally ignoring me. Even when these thoughts have no evidence behind them, they can still feel completely real. And when the discomfort becomes strong enough, another text can feel like the easiest solution. Even a short reply can temporarily calm the fear building inside them. But this creates a psychological cycle that can become surprisingly powerful. Silence creates anxiety. Anxiety creates an urge to text. Texting creates temporary relief, and relief reinforces the behavior. The next time silence happens, the brain remembers that texting reduced the discomfort before, so the urge to send another message becomes even stronger. Repeated texting can therefore be less about the other person's behavior and more about regulating the anxious partner's emotional state. They are trying to make their nervous system feel safe again. Many anxious partners also fear emotional distance more than they fear conflict itself. An argument at least provides information because both people are communicating and the situation is visible. Silence provides no information, leaving the anxious partner alone with their imagination. That is why an unanswered message can sometimes feel more distressing than a disagreement. During an argument, they know something is wrong and can attempt to repair it. During silence, they don't know whether there is anything to repair at all. That uncertainty can become emotionally exhausting. If their partner normally replies quickly, a longer silence can feel especially meaningful. The anxious mind may interpret that change as evidence that emotional interest has decreased. But response time alone cannot tell you what someone feels. People become busy, distracted, overwhelmed, tired, or emotionally unavailable for countless reasons. The problem is that anxiety can treat uncertainty as evidence. And once uncertainty becomes evidence, the urge to seek reassurance becomes harder to resist. This is also why anxious partners may send messages they later regret. They may send something emotional while overwhelmed, then feel embarrassed once the anxiety disappears. The message was often an emotional reaction to discomfort, not a carefully planned decision. And this is where emotional awareness can change the pattern. Instead of immediately asking, "Why aren't they replying?" an anxious partner can learn to ask, "What am I feeling because they aren't replying?" Maybe the real feeling is fear, rejection, insecurity, loneliness, or fear of losing the relationship. Once the emotion is identified, the urge to immediately act on it becomes easier to manage. The goal isn't to stop caring about your partner. The goal is to stop making every uncomfortable feeling an emergency. There is a powerful difference between wanting connection and demanding immediate reassurance. Healthy communication allows you to express your needs without repeatedly chasing someone for a response. You can send one clear message and allow the other person reasonable space to respond. If delayed communication becomes a consistent pattern, address it directly instead of repeatedly texting during moments of anxiety. Explain that long periods of unexplained silence make you feel disconnected. Then ask whether both partners can agree on a healthier communication pattern. This shifts the situation from emotional chasing toward intentional communication. And that shift is extremely important. Because anxious attachment does not mean someone is destined to chase forever. It simply means uncertainty may activate stronger emotional reactions that require greater awareness. With self-awareness, an anxious partner can learn to pause before reacting. They can notice the urge to send another message without automatically obeying it. They can step away from the phone, continue their day, and allow reality to reveal itself. Sometimes the person will respond. Sometimes they will not. And sometimes the silence itself provides important information about the relationship. The healthiest response is not always sending another message. Sometimes the healthiest response is observing what happens when you stop chasing the answer. You discover whether the other person naturally moves towards you when you are no longer pulling them closer. You discover whether communication is mutual or whether you are carrying most of the emotional responsibility. And you discover whether the relationship provides genuine security or only temporary reassurance. So if an anxious partner texts again after receiving no response, don't immediately label them needy or desperate. There may be a deeper emotional process happening underneath that behavior. They may be trying to protect themselves from the painful possibility of rejection or abandonment. Their repeated message may be saying something their words cannot clearly express. It may be saying, "Please reassure me that we're okay." It may be saying, "I don't know what this silence means." Or simply, "I feel disconnected, and I want to feel close to you again." Understanding this doesn't mean every repeated text should be encouraged. Healthy relationships still require boundaries, emotional responsibility, and respect for each person's space. But understanding the psychology behind the behavior allows you to respond with awareness instead of judgment. And for the anxious partner, the biggest breakthrough comes when they realize something important. Someone's delayed response does not automatically determine their feelings about you. Their silence may be uncomfortable, but discomfort is not always danger. A pause in communication does not automatically mean abandonment. And an unanswered message does not automatically mean you have done something wrong. Sometimes, the most powerful thing an anxious partner can do is put the phone down and let the moment breathe. Not because they don't care, but because they are learning that love does not require constant monitoring to survive. Real emotional security begins when you can tolerate uncertainty without immediately abandoning yourself. And when you learn to pause instead of chase, you gain something more valuable than an instant reply. You gain the ability to remain emotionally grounded, even when someone else is temporarily unavailable. That is when communication becomes healthier, relationships become clearer, and your peace no longer depends on how quickly someone answers your text.